Welcome, friends. Today I will tell you a story of love, betrayal, and redemption, set in a quiet rural setting. Enjoy the story. Steve never really planned on staying in that small town. He just ended up there on an extended vacation after divorcing his wife. He caught his beloved wife in the arms of his own friend. His decision was made instantly. He didn't even bother hitting them. He simply kicked his former friend out the door and told his wife, "I'm going to my uncle's place in the country for a month. Be sure to get all your stuff out of my apartment." Hoping there wouldn't be any disagreements, he added, "Or else I'll air all your dirty laundry around town." His wife worked for the city government and was about to become a councilwoman. She told him she'd bury him, but Steve just coldly smiled. "You don't have it in you, sweetheart." And they both knew she didn't really have what it took. Her job was just a lucky fluke. She was in the right place at the right time. Steve quickly packed a bag, quit his job instead of taking leave, and drove out to his uncle's old place early the next morning. As a kid, he had been very close with his Uncle Joe, spending summers on the farm. After his aunt passed, he kept visiting through college, though not as often. Uncle Joe had tried getting him to move out there, but no way. Joe passed just after Steve got married. Pulling up to the farmhouse, Steve smiled, seeing it well maintained. Good thing he keeps giving the neighbor Tom those nice gifts. A new inflatable boat one year, a new separator the next. The place doesn't look abandoned at all. The grass is mowed, the fence is straight. This time Steve brought Tom a fancy new fishing rod, knowing an avid fisherman like Tom probably wouldn't splurge on something that nice himself. "Steve, is that you? How many years has it been?" Tom came over with a big grin and peeked in Steve's car. "Here for the whole summer?" "Just a month for now, we'll see after that." "But hey, this calls for a celebration. How about you fire up that amazing sauna of yours tonight and we grill up some steaks?" Tom chuckled. "You still remember my sauna? Man, that little shack is something else, isn't it?" As Tom headed home, Steve called out, "Hey, Tom, wait up. I got a little something for you to say thanks for keeping an eye on the place." Tom waved him off. "Aw, come on, it's no trouble at all. Honestly, your gifts make me feel awful. They're too generous." "So you don't want this fishing rod, then?" Tom's jaw dropped, seeing the high-end rod. "This is the one I wanted. Steve, I don't know what to say. Thank you. I'll get that sauna fired up for tonight." An hour later, Tom's wife, Nina, stopped by with a casserole. "Thought you might need something to tide you over before you get the kitchen sorted out. And Steve, thanks for everything you do for Tom. He just lights up over those gifts from you. It gives him something to look forward to instead of, well, you know how he took the farm closing pretty hard." Steve knew Tom had been the farm's mechanic and equipment repairman before it went under. "Yeah, he told me it was rough when they had to let everyone go. Thankfully, he had that little tractor repair business he could fall back on to make ends meet." Nina smiled. "Well, get ready. Tom's been working on some new bundles of branches for the sauna, special just for you." Steve feigned terror. "Nina, tell me where to hide." 4 years later, Steve's farm business was thriving beyond his wildest dreams, if it wasn't for one persistent thorn in his side. Her name was Allison. She was a former farmhand. He was smitten with her. They had dated for a while, but when he proposed, she simply said, "I'll think about it. Don't rush me." He was flabbergasted. After 4 years, a proposal wasn't rushed, right? Weren't they a little old to be taking things that slow at their age? Today, Steve was determined to revisit the subject with Allison, who had seemed pensive lately. What was holding her back? He and her son Brandon had an excellent relationship. Pulling up to the barn, Steve saw a stray cat and felt that familiar surge of annoyance. These cats were such a nuisance, showing up from the nearby suburbs every fall when people cruelly abandoned them. Despite him telling the farmhands repeatedly to stop feeding them, they created a regular junk pile where they left food scraps. Once, a cat had even fallen into a vat of perfectly good milk, ruining the whole batch. Steve had blown his top and warned them all. If he saw a single cat on the property in a week, he'd call animal control for a mass removal. The ladies looked mutinous, but Allison had surprised him by asking calmly, "And just where are these strays supposed to go to avoid starving?" "I don't know, and I don't care," he had snapped. "All I know is they're making this place into a health hazard." Oddly, the cat population did decline dramatically after that, and before long, there were no strays left. Until today's new arrival, that is. Steve was about to get out and investigate when he spotted Allison hurrying off in the distance, acting furtive, and frequently glancing around as if she didn't want to be seen. A horrible thought crossed his mind. Was she having an affair? Memories of catching his ex with his friend came flooding back. No, Allison didn't seem the type. Steve sighed. Of course, he had thought his ex-wife wasn't that type either. He got out of the truck and followed at a distance, using the tree line for cover. His imagination ran wild. What if her deadbeat ex had resurfaced and she was secretly meeting him, sheltering him because she still had feelings? Or worse, what if he was trying to extort money and she felt threatened? Allison disappeared into the abandoned dairy barn on the edge of the property. Steve's gut clenched. She was definitely meeting someone secretly, but who? He stormed through the main doors, startling Allison, who spun around with her hands full of cat food bowls, and surrounding her were at least a dozen stray cats meowing excitedly. Allison's eyes narrowed. "Steve, what are you doing here?" I saw you coming over here sneaking around and I thought—" He trailed off, embarrassed. "You thought what? That I was up to no good behind your back?" She stood up, putting her hands on her hips. "Unbelievable. I'm trying to help these poor abandoned creatures and your mind went straight to the gutter." Steve hung his head. "You're right. I made some wild assumptions. I'm sorry, Allison." They stood in awkward silence before he finally spoke up. "Listen, instead of you having to sneak around, why don't we convert this place into an actual cat shelter? Tom can help get it fixed up, the farm can supply food and supplies, and we can adopt them out through the animal shelter." Allison's stern expression softened as she considered his proposal. "You're serious? You'd really do that for them?" "Of course. We're all God's creatures, right?" he said with a sheepish grin. 2 months later, the first adoptions from the newly opened shelter took place, with Allison beaming with pride like a parent seeing kids off to college, and a month after that, she finally agreed to be Steve's wife, his heart near to bursting with joy. On their wedding day, a bashful Allison brought Steve aside to tell him about an extra special wedding gift she would be giving him in 9 months' time, a newborn baby, their firstborn child together. Steve broke down in happy tears, smothering Allison in hugs and kisses, then embracing Tom, Nina, Brandon, and even nuzzling the cats. Looking at her new husband's euphoric face, Allison realized it was possible to find happiness again, even if you had given up hoping for it. All you needed was a little bit of faith and a lot of fuzzy purring friends.